Welcome back, everybody. This is Mohawk Motors. My name is Jason, and we're working on some more trucks to flip and sell. So let me bring you up to speed on where I'm at. So I've been doing a little bit of work behind the scenes since the last video on this red truck. I got new shocks put on in the rear. I've repaired the two rear axle brake lines, ran new lines with nickel copper line, all new fittings. Got that all squared away. I needle gunned the rear diff cover because I wanted to get it cleaned off of all the scale and make sure it didn't have any weeping leaks or anything like that. And that seems good to go. And aside from that, I've just been gathering parts. So I've got all new front pads and rotors, all new rear pads and rotors, new motor mounts, the new rear parking brake cables. The rest of the parking brake stuff seems to be okay. It's just those two rear cables are seized up. New front shock absorbers, a new air filter, and a set of new exhaust manifold bolts. And that's everything that I was able to just in a go over of the truck see that was definitely wrong, that I know I want to put new parts in place. Now, I may find some other things that need to be corrected or aren't quite right. If I need to get more parts, I will. But hopefully I probably have the stuff here that I may need. You know, little pieces of trim or other odds and ends off the truck. So I'm gonna get these rear brakes swapped out and the new parking brake cables put on so the rear is buttoned up. I'll bleed the brakes, and then I'll probably bring you back with a status update. So nothing special about brakes. You've seen me do brakes who knows how many times. I don't need to show you again. Take the old parts off, put the new parts on. Nothing fancy. Well, everybody, I'm trying to pick up here. So I've got all my brakes replaced. New pads and rotors in the front, new pads and rotors in the rear. I got my two new rear parking brake cables hooked up, installed. I'm getting to work on some of the other parts I have. So another piece of low-hanging fruit to try to get myself motivated and moving are the front shocks. Now, a little tip on these front shocks. The bottom mount is a through bolt, right? Simple, normal, you've seen it hundreds of times. It's a very common way to mount a shock. The top mount is a stud. Now, the stud pokes through, and over time, that stud gets corroded. Shocks usually last a while. So over time, your shock will look like this, all corroded and nasty. And then that stud poking off the top, it gets all kinds of nasty. Corrosion, banged up, whatever else. It makes it a million times easier to get this nut off and thus remove the shock if you just cut off whatever is left of the stud above the nut. Cut off wheel, hacksaw, whatever you have. It doesn't have to be pretty, but just cut off all those corroded, nasty, boogered up threads. So then all you're doing is spinning the nut off of the threads it's already engaged on. Makes it a 1,000 times easier to get that top nut off. You're replacing the shock anyway, so who cares if you cut off part of the stud? So just a little tip. I'm gonna get these new shocks installed on both sides, and then hopefully that'll get me motivated enough to try to get these motor mounts replaced. I wanna do it while I have the fender liners out. Gives me easy access to the side of the engine here, so I'm gonna do that while I'm at it. All right, I've put it off as long as I can. I gotta get the motor mounts in this thing done. The passenger side is the easier side in these things. You can see the motor mount right down there. There's 3 bolts that go into the frame side of the mount, 4 bolts that go into the engine block. They're all 15 millimeter. The ones in the block usually come right out, they're no problem, but these 3 that go into the frame side, those have Loctite on them from the factory. Now, there's 2 ways to get around Loctite. Heat releases Loctite. So if you have it in an area where you can apply heat, get it warm, that will release the Loctite, they should back out. I'm gonna try some heat with my MAP gas torch, but there's a lot of wiring and other things around here that I don't want to melt. The other way around Loctite is patience. Back the bolt out a little, back it back in, back it out a little more, back it back in, back and forth, work it out, and take your time. So I'm more than likely going to be doing a combination of those two methods because, like I said, I can't get it super hot in there. Now the other trick to this is my first time doing these engine mounts on a lift, and I need to support the engine while I'm doing this. So I'm going to get one of my post jacks, put it under the oil pan, and lift up just enough to take the weight off the motor mount. That'll relieve the pressure on the rubber. And then once I get all the bolts out, it'll give me enough space to actually get the mount out of there. So I'm gonna get set up, I'll get started. I'll probably bring you guys back once I'm all jigged up, rigged up and going, and show you how I'm doing. All right, going well so far. I've got all three out. You can see the remains of the red Loctite on the bolts there, I think. Yeah. I'm not going to touch them, they're hot. So a little bit of heat and a little bit of patience and those are out. You can see I've got my post jack under the oil pan. And I've got just enough space there that the frame is separated from that motor mount. Now here's a tip that I didn't do myself, and I should have, but undo the 4 bolts that go into the engine first. So then you're not trying to remove those 4 bolts around a hot motor mount or standing around waiting for the motor mount to cool off so you don't burn yourself. So I'm gonna give it a few minutes. I don't feel like burning my hands, and then I'll get those 4 bolts out, and then it's just the task of sneaking that thing out of there. If I remember correctly, there's room down here that we can sneak it out. So I'll bring you guys back once I have that out of there. Got the 4 bolts out of the engine, and I mean, they come right out. Usually all 4 of them, once I broke them loose, I just spun them out with my fingers. That was easy. But now I gotta try to Tetris finagle to get this old one out of here and remember exactly how I did it to get the new one back in there. So I've already been fiddling with it for a couple minutes. Forgot to show you, so I'm gonna keep fiddling with it and see if I can't fiddle wiggle get it out of there. Shazam, it's out. So here's my new mount. You can see exact same thing. Now this mount here, this is the only thing really wrong with the engine mounts, and they're pretty squished down. So would this have failed an inspection? Probably not. I feel like most inspectors probably would have let that slide. But it's not so much about pass or fail inspection on this one as it is, I bought the truck fully intending to fix it up and sell it to somebody, and more than likely sell it to somebody who's going to depend on it, either for work, maybe transporting their family, maybe just getting themselves, you know, to and from vacation or whatever it may be. But they're going to depend on it, and I want it to be a vehicle that is trustworthy and dependable, and they don't have to worry about making more repairs. I'm going to get it through inspection before I sell it, which means everything will be right up to safety spec, everything else. And then that'll give that person at least a year that all they have to do is put gas in it, do the regular scheduled maintenance, and enjoy the truck. So that's why I'm replacing these motor mounts. That's why I did all new brakes on it. That's why I'm gonna do a full fluid service on it, like all that stuff. I just wanna be able to sell this truck to somebody and them get a good truck at a reasonable price, and we can both feel good about the deal. So I'm gonna get the new mount poked back up in there, and then I'll see what time it is. I might call that my stopping point for tonight. Maybe I'll do the other side. The other side's a little more tight quarters, so we'll see what time it is. Well, everybody, it's all back together. New motor mount is in, everything's bolted up tight. Now, a little tip for you if you're doing this, get all of the bolts started before you tighten any of them. And by all, I mean get all 4 bolts that go into the engine block started, and get all 3 bolts that go into the frame side of the mount started. Once you have all of them started, then go ahead, sit the full weight down onto it, and tighten them all down. So, like I said, this side, all done, bolted in, everything tight, ready to go. Now I decided since I'm here and I have easy access, I'll pull the plugs, check the wires, and from what I can see and what I can tell, these look like the original spark plugs. They're still the AC Delcos. And if you remember from the first video on this truck, it looked like I had a cylinder 7 and a cylinder 8 misfire. And this is the plug from cylinder 8. And I don't see anything wrong with this plug. I think the plug is fine. Once I get this truck back on the ground and I'm ready to start diagnosing those misfires, first thing I'm going to do is swap coils, see if I can move the misfire to another cylinder by swapping some of the ignition components around. I don't think that's going to do me any good. I'm pretty confident my problem is going to be clogged up injectors on cylinders 7 and 8. Those are at the lowest part of the fuel rail. When the trucks sit, the gas gets all crummy and nasty and gummy inside of there, settles down to the lowest point, which is the number 7 and 8 injectors. I've seen it enough times. I'm pretty confident that's going to be the problem with this one. It's not a big deal. I'll just pull the injectors and clean them. But for now, I'm going to get a little dab of anti-seize onto these things because the threads were very dry and it's a little tricky getting them out. So I'm going to give them a little dab of anti-seize, put them back in there, get the wires back on, and then get this side closed back up. Get the fender liner back in, and I already went through and greased everything that can be greased. So I'll call this side done, and then I'll see if I'm feeling like doing some more tonight. All right, we're all back together. I'll torque the lug nuts to final torque once I get the truck sitting back down on the ground. But fender liner is back in, everything's back together. I did think, and I went ahead and put a socket on the head of each exhaust manifold bolt and just give them a little, see if they were still solid. Typically, well, not typically, but I've seen exhaust manifold bolts break in a way that the head of the bolt is still there on the manifold, but as soon as you apply any torque, it just pops, it snaps right off. They're literally just hung by a thread. So I went ahead, put my socket on all 6 exhaust manifold bolts, gave them a little push, and none of them moved. They're still solid. So this side I don't have to mess with any exhaust manifold bolts, which is great. Yeah, I'll just get it set back down on the, once I'm all done, get it set back down on the ground and get these wheels to final torque. Tomorrow evening I'll tackle this side. I've got one broken exhaust manifold bolt right there in the front, and the motor mount, obviously. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll check the plugs and wires, make sure they all look good, and then I'll get the inner fender liner put back on this side also. The wheel and tire and all that stuff all buttoned up. And then that should pretty much wrap up the underneath work that I need to do on this thing. Parking brakes functioning, service brakes are functioning, everything else is where it should be. I'll get the front bumper put back on and start getting the front end all back together. I'm not sure if I'm going to need to get some new headlights for this thing or not. I probably am. I don't think they'll pass all fogged over like this, but I'm pretty sure I have a good set around here somewhere that I can put on there. So closing in, making progress. It's almost 11 o'clock. I'm gonna go in and get some sleep, but I'll be back out here tomorrow and I'll see you guys then. All right, next day. Got down here. It's actually daytime. Kids are over watching a movie while I'm working on this. So I'm gonna try to get this other motor mount out. Gonna remember my own advice and do the engine side bolts first, then I'll do heat and patience to get the frame side bolts out, hopefully all in one piece. We should be able to swap that motor mount out, and then again, while I'm over here, I have easy access. I'm gonna pull the ignition, the plugs and wires, and then I'm gonna pull the exhaust manifold bolts. We'll see how many more of them break off in the process of me trying to get them out, because the very front bolt is snapped off. Now it does look like there's a little stub poking out of the head, so hopefully I can get that one out with just a little bit of heat and patience also. But if not, I'll drag the welder over here and I'll get them extracted. We'll see how many break off as I get the rest of them out as well. So I'll get to it. I'll bring you guys back when I have some progress. Woohoo! Success! So the new motor mount is in, all bolted in place, nice and tight. Got the plugs and wires out, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull on these exhaust manifold bolts and see how many of them snap off. I'm betting at least one, probably two, and then I'm gonna go up and take a lunch break. That'll be a good stopping point, and I can mentally prepare myself for trying to extract what's left of these exhaust manifold bolts. So yeah, I guess I'm just gonna start pulling on them, and you guys want to watch? You can watch. Let's start with the one all the way in the back, because if there's another one that's gonna break off, I'd be willing to bet that's gonna be it. And not real easy to get a good angle on these. Woo! Man, we might need a cheater. Holy smokes, these things are they only go to 18 foot-pounds of torque. I think I'm twisting it off. Maybe not. Maybe it is turning. Nope, twisting. Yep, had a feeling. All right, so there's our first broken off one. But it did at least break off at the head, so there's still a little bit of stud sticking out. Maybe I can grab a hold of. Let's try this one. All right, I'm gonna get a longer extension so I can get a better angle on this. Okay. All right, let's see, what's this one gonna do? Twist off also. Man, are we just gonna twist all of them off? Oh, that one broke off pretty flush with the head. So I guess we're gonna be getting the welder out. Whoops. That one twisted off. Just about flush with the head also. Man, are we just gonna be going 6 for 6 on this side? Golly! Wow! Alright, that one snapped right off. And my socket fell somewhere. Oh, there it is. All right, last one here. We're gonna be 6 for 6. Yeah, that one twisted off as soon as I pushed on it. Ta-da. And that looks like it's broken off right inside the head too. Oh yeah. That's the way it goes. Sometimes you have a little bit more luck with an impact, or if you heat the engine up first and then try. I just don't have that option. I've got my kids out here. I can't use the impacts because it makes the little one cry. So we've got 6 exhaust manifold bolts to extract out of that cylinder head. At least I got a little time. I can mentally prepare myself and be ready to do that. I'm going to do the nut and welder trick. That always works well for me. So hopefully the heat from the welding will work like it usually does, and they'll back out pretty easily. All right, everybody. So we're back down in the workshop. I'm not gonna lie, I've been battling these exhaust manifold bolts, the broken off ones, for 45 minutes or so now, and I just got the first one out. So I went straight to weld and extract with a nut, because it's always worked for me. And these ones, I mean, they're in there. This is probably one of the more corroded heads and bolts I've seen. I mean, this thing was a plow truck, so it just got stuff up in there. But I did manage to, I got the first one extracted right back here. And here's the remains. But man, that thing fought me. I wound up breaking out pretty much all the tricks. Weld up a little bit more, build a little nubbin up on the end of what's left of the bolt, as hot as I can get it, and then squirt it with some penetrating oil, tap it with a hammer, try to jar it loose, give it a little bit more penetrating oil, then weld the nut on it. Again, get it as hot as I can get it, and then more penetrating oil, more tapping, and then slowly work it out. So I've got this next one here ready. I'm gonna try to do the same thing with it. Hopefully that method works on that one too, and I can get these things out of there, because they're tight. They do not want to come out. And these are the ones that are easier to get to. The one at the back of the head is gonna be tricky. The rest of them won't be too bad. I can pretty much get access straight onto them. So I'll keep track of my time, see how long it actually takes me to get all 6 of these extracted. Well, like so many things, once you figure out what works, it works. So I got the next 2 bolts out first try. I used the same method. Build some weld up on the end, get it as hot as I can, then bang on the end of it with a hammer, try to break the rust and gunk loose off the threads, spray it with a little penetrating oil, bang on it some more, then get the nut on it, weld the nut on, get it as hot as I can, a little more banging, a little more penetrating oil, let it cool all the way off, and then they backed right out. So I got 3 out of 6 out of there. I'll work on the rear one and the front one next, and then this one here I'm gonna save for last because it's broken off below the surface. So that one's gonna be a little tricky. Now that we've got something that's working though, I feel much better. I'm confident I'll be able to get all 6 of them out. We'll be able to get this thing put back together this evening. Woo! It's the next day, everybody. I've been down here for about an hour with my 2 older kids while the little one's napping. I finally got all of these studs out. I had the 3 from yesterday, and then I got the last 3 out today. Surprisingly, the one that was broken off below the surface wasn't too bad. I was able to get a little pile of weld built up on that and get it out on my second try. But man, the ones on either ends, the all the way forward and the all the way back, Whew, those ones really fought. I really had to throw a lot of heat onto the end of those with the welder, to the point that I was dripping metal off of the end, trying to get them hot. And then a lot of hammering, a lot of penetrating oil, and a lot of patience, and I finally got them out. But I'll tally them all up when I sweep the floor, but I think I've got probably 15 or 20 nuts on the floor that I welded on and then twisted off. So, I mean, eventually it works every time, but sometimes it takes a lot of perseverance to get them out of there. So, I'm glad it's done. They're all out. I'll come back down this afternoon once everything's cooled off, and then I'll get it put back together. So, happy to have that job done. I'm getting this thing back together. I want to show you guys a little tip on what I find to be an easier way to get these manifolds back on using factory gaskets, because I really think the factory multi-layer steel gaskets are the best things you can use on these. So the factory gasket, like I said, it's a multi-layer steel gasket, but all 6 bolt holes are full circle holes. I've seen a bunch of times when people replace these gaskets, they get like the Fel-Pro replacement composite style gaskets, because the forwardmost hole and the rearmost hole are they're U-shaped. So you can just slide the manifold out, drop the gasket in, it'll rest on the bolts, and then bolt the other bolts back in. But those leak. They don't seal as good as the factory gaskets. So what I do on these, and I really hope you can see it here, is I get my exhaust manifold. I usually get this 5th bolt back. This one right here. I get this one started in the hole first, just enough that it's got like maybe 3/8 to a 1/2 inch of threads into the head. It's gonna be able to hold the manifold where I want it without any issues. Once I do that, I can still pull the manifold out away from the head enough to slide the gasket behind it. And then I can put my front bolt up here. I can put it through the manifold and through the gasket and get it threaded into the block 3/8 to a 1/2 inch as well. Now, this bolt, this front bolt, will hold my gasket and my manifold where I need them to be. And that allows me to take this 5th bolt back out, drop the gasket down to where it's supposed to sit between the manifold and the head, and then I can put it back in, and then I can put my other 4 bolts in, get all of them all lined up, cinched down, and all where it's supposed to be. And like I said, I do it this way because the factory multi-layer steel gaskets, they're all full circle bolt holes. I don't think anything seals as well as these factory gaskets do. So I always put them back on. The bolts break, the gaskets are 99% of the time, the gaskets are fine. So I scraped off the manifold with a scraper. I scraped off the head with a scraper. Do not use a little buffing wheel or something like that. It makes low spots and then you're gonna get leaks. I just scrape off whatever residue I can with a scraper and then go through this process, get all 6 bolts started, and then I go back through and torque all 6 bolts down. So I'll finish up, get them all 6 started, get them all torqued, and then I think once I have that done, I can go ahead and put this fender liner back in, start really getting this truck put back together. Ta-da! We're all back together. Exhaust manifold bolts torqued to spec, gasket in place, plug wires back, spark plugs back, all tidied up under here, and get the inner fender liner put back where it goes. And then, what do I need to do then? Then I guess I need to sit it back down on the floor and get all the wheels torqued to spec. Hey guys, it's Saturday now, the next day, and I'm working on getting the injectors cleaned up so I can get this thing running correctly. Like I said before, I pulled all the plugs, pulled all the wires, and they all look good, test good. I think they're fine. I think my misfire on cylinder 8 and cylinder, I think my misfire on cylinder 7 and cylinder 8 is a lack of fuel. So I already did bank 1. I pulled all 4 injectors, cleaned them out, and got them set up in my injector tester / flow bench over here. And they're all flowing evenly now. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I'm pretty sure, at least as far as I can tell by removing the coil plug, cylinder 7 is now firing, same as all the other cylinders on this bank. So bank 1 is squared away, it's firing, running good. I wanted to show you on bank 2 because I have an obviously not functioning injector in cylinder 8. So if I connect my power supply here to my little fuel pump, I've got fuel pressure. Now this is 2, 4, 6, and 8. And if I flick my little switch, which provides ground to the injectors, you can see 2, 4, and 6 are firing, but 8 isn't doing anything. So I need to figure out why that is. I'm suspecting / hoping that it's just stuck or maybe clogged. So I'm going to pull it back out of the test right here. I'm going to clean it again, and then I'm going to very gently tap it on a hard surface and see if I can't get that plunger to move. If I can't get that plunger to move, I'm going to have to look through the other engines I have here and see if I have another injector with the same part number on it. Well, I got lucky. I pulled it out of the rail, cleaned it out again. It was clean already. I didn't get anything else out of it. But then I took the metal body, this little part right here, the metal body, and I just tapped it against the edge of my steel table here, and that freed it up. So now we're flowing. Just like we should be, nice and even across all 4 injectors. So that should take care of that misfire also. I'm gonna get all these injectors back in the truck and then start it up, make sure it's running better. It should be. Well, everybody, it's all back together. You can tell it's running smoothly now. Nice stable idle. No noises or anything like that, except the serpentine belt. It's either the idler pulley or the tensioner. I'm just gonna throw a new idler and tensioner and a new belt on it just to make sure that it's not an issue in the future. And then it's gonna be time for a test drive on this thing. So that's it for now. I'll have to wait for those parts to get here. I'm gonna have to juggle some trucks around out in the driveway to be able to get this one out of the workshop. But pretty excited about this progress. Thing is running good. And I'll probably go get the paperwork on Monday, get all this ready to go, paperwork done, so I can start driving it for a little bit, put some miles on it until I sell it. All right, everybody, we're back down here. It's Tuesday evening. Kids are in bed, you know, normal stuff. I'm down here doing my thing. I got some finishing touches for the red truck here. I've got new idler, new tensioner, new serpentine belt, and a pair of new windshield wipers. Nothing crazy, quick and dirty, gonna get them on there. Now, I figure I'll share this with you guys. Maybe you're in Pennsylvania and you're trying to do the same thing. I went today to try to get the title paperwork switched over. This truck has a clean title, but I did purchase it from Copart. Now, in that process and in Pennsylvania here, because it has had a reassignment of title by a dealer, which Pennsylvania considers Copart a dealer, I need to have a VIN verification done on the truck. And there's two ways you can do that. You can either take the truck to the place where you're having your title work done, and they can verify the VIN there. In order to do that, I don't have any plates on this truck, so I would need to trailer it there. My other option is to have a VIN verification done by a certified inspection mechanic here in Pennsylvania. It's a form, they fill it out, no problem. I'm fortunate enough, I have a good relationship with the mechanic who's doing my inspections. And rather than making me trailer the thing over there, do the VIN verification, go get the title paperwork done, then get the tags on the truck, drive it back over there again for him to inspect it. He swung by the house this afternoon, filled out the VIN verification form for me, put his signature and his inspector number on it, so I can go tomorrow, get the title paperwork, get it transferred to my name, get license plates for it, and then take it to him to be inspected on Thursday. So I'm gonna quick and dirty get the new serpentine belt, new tensioner, and new idler pulley put on this thing. Get the new windshield wipers put on this thing. And then I'm probably gonna call it for the evening. That's all I really need to get done tonight, because tomorrow I wanna take it out and get some miles on it in Mexico, just to make sure that it's 100% for him on Thursday. So let's do this idler, tensioner, and serpentine belt. All right, well, quick, relatively painless. And little tip, if you're doing this, on pretty much any of the GMT 800s with a V8, if you pull the intake tube, that gives you way more space to reach down and access your tensioner and your idler pulleys to replace those. The only tools you really need for this is a flathead screwdriver to pull the intake tube, and then a 15mm socket. And I mean, that's really it. If you have a flex head ratchet, that helps, but a regular ratchet works fine. And a ratcheting wrench can be convenient sometimes, but again, not necessary. So quick and easy. Let's start it up. Should be nice and quiet now. No belt squeaking. There we go. Nice and quiet, how it should be. Piece of cake. Got the new windshield wipers on, and that means everything on this truck is ready. I'm gonna do one final check on all the lights, make sure they're all good, and I'm gonna go through and re-torque the exhaust manifold bolts, because I've had those, they've heat cycled a couple times now, so I want to torque them down again, and then this thing should be ready for inspection on Thursday. Woohoo! She's back in the shop. It went through inspection just fine. No problems, everything good, everything working, doing what it's supposed to do. Since then, I've put about 80 miles on the truck, and 3 minor things have come up. First thing, I hear an exhaust manifold leak here on the driver's side where I had to replace the bolts. I have used these bolts in the past, and I've had them be too long. I suspect that's what's happening here, so I'm gonna go through one at a time, pull those bolts out, take a little bit off the end, maybe like 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch off the end, and then put them back in and retighten them, see if that takes care of the exhaust manifold leak. The horn died. I beeped the horn yesterday or day before, and it went so I don't know what's happened. Maybe there was something up in there, and whatever it is, it's not working. So I got to replace the horn. I just pulled one off of a parts truck that I have out back. That's not a big deal. And then the brakes started squeaking on me last night. I mean, brand new brake rotors and pads, and I've got a squeak. It sounds like a thin metal squeak. So I'm suspecting maybe one of the little slide plates or something shifted or moved or something like that. So I got to pull that off and see if I can't get this brake squeak stopped. So 3 little minor things to get taken care of. I honestly expected to have worse happen after putting some miles on this thing, so I'm not upset about it, but I want to document the whole thing for you guys. I'm going to get it up in the air. I'll let you know what I find with the exhaust manifold bolts. I'll let you know what I find with the brakes. The horn, like I said, it's getting power. It's just for whatever reason this horn died, so I got to swap it out. All right, well, I'm out of time for today, but I did get the exhaust manifold off. I cleaned the gasket up. I shortened all the bolts just a teeny bit. I looked around. I didn't see any obvious signs of leaks, but like I said, I could hear it. So hopefully it was just those bolts were just a skosh too long and it wasn't fully tightening against the head. So hopefully that's taken care of. I inspected this brake. I don't see anything wrong. I don't see anything rubbing or touching or doing what it shouldn't be doing. I'm going to check the rear on the driver's side. I think it's coming from the driver's side, but I'm out of time for today, so I'll have to pick back up tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. Well, the horn works, and I got the exhaust leak fixed. The bolts were just the teeniest bit too long, so I took like an 1/8 inch off the end of them, torqued them all back down, and no more exhaust leak. So I got that taken care of. The brakes, I pulled all 4 wheels. I checked the brakes. I can't find anything wrong with them. It's all new, brand new AC Delco rotors, AC Delco pads. So I don't know why they're squeaking. It's kind of frustrating. It's definitely better than it was, but I didn't do anything to them. I don't know why they're squeaking. So I'm just gonna put some more miles on it. Maybe they just need to get broken in a little bit and they'll quiet down. But other than that, this truck is flawless now. I'm gonna take a little time, get it all cleaned out and vacuumed out. She's pretty dirty and grimy. Actually, I think I'm just gonna wrap this video up with that. She's good to go. She just needs a cleaning and she's ready to be sold. I'm gonna keep putting miles on it just so I can feel good about selling it to somebody, knowing it's not gonna have any more problems. I don't think it's going to. And yeah, so thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. If you're near Pennsylvania and you need a crew cab short bed truck, this is a good one. Only 85,000 miles on it. Clear title. So thanks again for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again soon.